Good evening, everybody. Today's date, August 10th, 2020 at 6:02 p.m. This is the East Lyme Inland Wetlands Agency special meeting for one purpose and one purpose only, to hear the application for Creek Road, Giants Neck Heights Clubhouse, and 21 Marshfield Road, Your Brother's Keeper, LLC. I'm calling this meeting to order. I'm Gary Upton, and we have in our presence Jen Lindo, Gary Gaishel, Sue Spang, Rosemary Osfeld, David Schmidt, Jason Diebel, Terrence, Kristen Chantrell, the applicant Brian Kennedy, Phyllis Berger, Ted Koch, Dom Phimister, and Rich and Kate Steele. Good evening, everybody. We technically don't need an alternate, Jason, but Jason, thank you for hanging out as you always do. It's greatly appreciated. It's very appreciated if someone can't be here. We have our regular meeting at 7 o'clock tonight to go over our regulations. And here we go. For our one thing and our one thing only, our applicant is here. We've all seen this. I'm going to read the rest of this. Sorry. Agent for owner for a permit to conduct regulated activity at Creek Road at 21 Marshfield Road for the clean out of a culvert entrance and exit to maintain the natural flow of water. East Lyme Assessors Map 04.7, lot 18 and 19. Mr. Kennedy, we have walked the site. We are familiar with the site. Apologetically, we had to, just following how it all works, make you make an application. And at this point, I'm going to pass it over to our town's agent. This is a pretty standard situation. And unless anyone from the agency would disagree, I'd like to hear Mr. Gaishel's direction for this application. If anyone disagrees, put your hand up and say, I'd like to talk about it first, but let's hear what Mr. Gaishel has to say. Does that sound good? Oh, Phyllis, unmute yourself. You get her, Jen?
Yeah, I don't have, she's got her, there you go, Phyllis.
I'm here. Have they retained any specialists? Soil scientists?
I'm not sure. Mr. Gaishel has the current standing on Mr. Kennedy's application.
Okay.
So if I may, Mr. Chair. I do, for the record, have a memo. I believe, Jen, you have a PDF or email. It's dated August 6, 2020. I don't believe it was actually posted to the website, so I'm entering it now. Basically, they did not retain a soil scientist. I reviewed the application myself, and I guess I can read my memo into the record if you'd like. But essentially, what they're proposing to do, as you know, is to clear the culvert pipe to restore the flow. As part of that is proposed removal of the on-site Phragmites. So I am in favor of doing that. I do believe that the short-term disturbance associated with the removal shouldn't create any adverse impacts to the existing native species, provided the invasives are targeted. That is most important in this application, is that we just focus on the invasive species. And I do caution that although the plastic barriers are being proposed, sometimes that these Phragmites, they need to be treated with herbicide. So in the event that that's something that you have to come forward with, and the association may need to ask the commission, my recommendation there is that they use a licensed applicator for such activity if this commission deems that adequate. Also recommending that an erosion sedimentation control plan be provided just to ensure and demonstrate how the soils will be controlled during the pulling of vegetation and cutting. Also recommended that a financial guarantee be provided for vegetation that is reestablished, because obviously if you're removing vegetation, they're going to cover those with the plastic barrier, and I would imagine we're going to have to probably put some sort of medium, most likely to be a herbaceous type medium that would go on top of that barrier. You would probably put a few inches of topsoil over the plastic barrier and seed that. I did provide in my memo some suggestions on different seed mixes. The New England Conservation Wildlife Seed Mix would be my recommendation in the disturbed areas and the upland. And then I do have several recommendations for herbaceous material to be planted in disturbed wetland areas in the salt marsh, things like spike rush and blue flag iris, etc. The whole list is there. And that's pretty much the extent of my memo. I do provide some draft language for the commission to consider in proposing a motion. That's the status, at least based on my review. And I don't know if Mr. Kennedy has any more to add to that or not. There it is.
Jen, could you move it over so we could see it to the left? To the
Yeah,
that.
unfortunately, I don't have that option of moving the screen.
Maybe zoom out a little. Can we zoom out a little?
Yeah, can you click on view and shrink it to actual size? There you go.
There we
Is that
go.
better?
That's better.
All right, so based on the above findings indicated, erosion sedimation bond amount of dollars shall be as-built survey be provided. Inland wetlands agent shall be contacted 2 days prior to work. Can we go down to number 5? ENS, standard ENS, above applicant terms. So again, I mean, I think it's important that this is supervised, and I really do understand what's going on here. I guess I would, to be succinct, and Gary, do you feel that that the property owner has done their diligence here? I mean, I understand Phyllis is saying, hey, we don't have a soil scientist. I guess I don't mean to weigh that with, I know there's plenty of property owners that just take their weed whacker out and spray it with Roundup. So I think we do need to commend this property owner for doing this the right way. That's where I get a little bit stuck, and I don't want to really just kill them here.
Certainly. Understanding that, I would say based on past history and experience with similar applications throughout town, I can think of some on Atlantic Ave. Obviously, they weren't as well supervised, and we had to actually find a gentleman. But in the process of that application, we learned quite a bit about how to manage inland wetlands and coastal tidal wetlands and where that interface is. As a result of applications like that, I certainly think they've done their due diligence. They clearly want to restore the flow in the pipe. Certainly my concern is just disturbing the adjacent soils and the areas and reopening the seabed just to more phragmite. Again, their proposal though, they're proposing the plastic barrier as a means to control them. So I think, that's perfectly acceptable as an alternative to Roundup, Rodeo, or some other herbicide. Short of excavating the top 2 feet of material, which is much, much more extensive, in my opinion, this is the most feasible and prudent alternative that they could bring forward, short of applying herbicides.
And I'd be curious to know the rest of the agency's feelings on, I'll say my own first. I would be strongly opposed to, glyphosate being applied to any phragmite, especially considering the dock there and people crabbing and all that such. But I'd be curious, other opinions on that. I might consider to add to a motion to approve this, maybe the restriction of doing so. Anyone else have an opinion?
I agree. I'm in agreement.
Rosemary, do you agree? Yeah.
Do they have to get a permit from the deep because we're coastal wetlands?
They will need to contact the deep. Yep, that'll be on them to verify whether or not they need one.
Okay. So that doesn't necessarily happen in parallel, but that's something that has to be done as part of the process.
Correct. They will need to verify it. The onus is on them to check with DEEP as the applicant to verify whether or not they need any. Obviously, and DEEP will get a copy of this in a record every quarter. We send up reports with every address in which we've issued a permit for.
So is there any possible way that we could get a copy once the DEEP comes through, so we can feel comfortable with this going on?
They're sent to us automatically.
They're sent to you.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't be able to start work until they get that deep permit,
If they need one.
If they need one, correct.
if they need one. Okay. And I guess I'm concerned also because there's no listing of who is going to be doing this work. I wouldn't want to see some random individual with a backhoe doing some of this work.
Phyllis, I'm not sure. They plan on actually, it seems like tarping it, the black tarping rather than the digging because, right? Am I right that we had kind of said that we were uncomfortable with the digging right there in the waterway.
So the proposal is to cut and pull. So they'll be cutting or pulling, which has been successful in controlling Phragmites. So they're proposing to do that. So that should reduce, I mean, obviously the pulling will create some disturbance of the ground. Says here that they'll also have cutting. Phragmites stems should be cut below the lowest leaf, leaving 6 inches with a shorter stump. Handheld cutters or gas-powered hedge trimmers work well. Weed whackers with a circular blade. I believe that Mr. Kennedy is going to be doing the work or supervising that work. Maybe you can answer that.
Yes, we have somebody, I don't know if Gary had, our association, the Board of Governors, had reached out and said there's somebody within our association that actually does culvert cleaning. And we're going to reach out to them to help us with the cleaning out of the culvert and making sure that we have barriers up and help us in that aspect. And probably hire him to do that. I know, I just know they said he was on South Beechwood here, but they said they forgot the name. They was going to reach out and try to get that, but we're going to get them. And we're also, I was looking at clearing as much as we can, but right there in the heavy part of it, actually in the waterway, that is really, it's got to come out because it's blocking the flow. So we're trying to get that out as, easily and as little as possible, just what we need. So we don't interfere with the water as much as possible. And we're actually, working with, we're looking at several landscape companies to hire them to come in and replant whatever is needed. That are like Smith Acres, that was reaching out to them, and another land company up in Montville to do that work. The only thing I'm concerned with is planting it too soon before the Phragmites is taken care of, and then we have Phragmites plus the new vegetation growing. But I don't know, where it is getting into the wetlands, it's kind of hard not to avoid doing that. And, to make sure we don't have any more land erosion than possible.
On that note, Mr. Kennedy, I would note that you're going to tarp this area, and until you have those Phragmites kind of under control, would you bring in the additional plantings? And I would just note that the permit, if issued, it's good for 5 years. And at the end of 4.5, you can request an extension for another 5 if necessary. So the idea would be that on a long-term maintenance project, if you will, is that you would plan that, okay, in the first 2 to 3 years, this is going to remain tarped until the Phragmites are completely controlled. Then you'd go in year 3 and 4 and plant. That,
Okay.
I think
All right,
that,
yeah, because on the proposal you had, that's what I was looking at. It's like, oh, we got to do this all at once.
no,
So, yeah, that
it would have to be, phased in a period of
Phased
steps.
out. Okay.
And wouldn't it be likely that even once they're completely eradicated from that section of the marshland there, that there's, I know there's plenty of Phragmite all the way up, that it'll be back no sooner if it's not continued maintenance.
Right.
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 Well,
It has to be an oversight on it and continue to make sure if you see it, go cut it, I guess.
Yeah.
well, long term, hopefully the native vegetation that goes back in, if they can continue to maintain that, as well as you hear, cut new shoots as they pop up, they should be able to maintain at least a buffer and to keep that swath from moving south.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I would have to say, do we hear a motion to approve this application based upon these proposals as presented by our agent?
Are we adding the addition of not using pesticides?
I think we should.
So do we need to make a motion first to add that?
We can, however we wish to do it, right? We can just say we'd like to, in a motion to approve this, we'd just like to add in the restriction of the utilization of pesticides to eradicate the Phragmites.
You can add or subtract whatever conditions you deem necessary.
Sorry, I guess when do we do that? Do we just approve it?
When you make your motion, you know, as here, for instance, the proposed language here, it says, it's kind of very formal, and then in other materials submitted in support of this application, and then it lists a bunch of conditions, if you will.
Okay.
Aren't the Phragmites part of the DEP, truly? So if we was going to do anything to the Phragmites, we truly have to go to DEP before we do that. Including the, poison.
Yeah, any herbicide application is permitted through DEEP,
Right,
that I do know.
right. Because we have to go to them to really, where the Phragmites are is on the coastal wetlands, basically.
Correct.
So then we don't need to add that provision because they've got to go to deep to get permission anyway, yes?
Technically, they're at the convergence of the salt and the fresh water.
I say we may as well put that in there.
Doesn't-
No. I think that's fine, but
Yeah, we don't plan on using it anyway, and if we did, we'd have to come back and we'll bring it forward again. But hopefully we can get it under control without it.
You guys want me to make the motion for Sue to keep this easy on this one? Is that okay with the team?
sure.
Is that all right with everyone else?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve this application to mitigate the Phragmites as outlined by our town's agent, Mr. Gaishel, with the addition, the restriction of using glyphosate or any pesticide.
Herbicide, right?
Herbicide, thank you.
So,
Thank you. It's early. The brain's not on yet. Got to save it for 7.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Is there any further discussion from the team about this? If anyone would like to say anything, please put your hand up. I can't, Jen, can you turn off the screen view
Yep.
so we can see everybody? I don't want to miss anyone if they're sitting there going like, I want to say something. So Ted, Kristen, Phyllis, Dave, Rosemary, anyone have anything?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
So all in favor to approve this motion? Sue, I'm sorry, Sue, are you good on this?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to blast along. I figured it'd be nice if everyone has a little break before we hit 7 o'clock. All in favor from the top down? I'm in favor. I'm going to just go in order of what I see on the screen. Rosemary,
Yes, in favor.
Dave,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yep.
Phyllis,
No.
okay, Ted Koch,
Aye.
and we don't have any alternates seated, correct? Mr. Fimister, you're a regular seated member?
Aye.
You're aye, okay, great. So the ayes have it. with one opposed. The motion passes. And moving on, I guess we should just, this is something we should tackle in our regulations later when we know we need to tighten our regulations on matters like Phragmites and how to take care of them. So we should probably come up with a system or something that's, maybe Deep has something we can, Gary Gaishel couldn't look into that for us, that we can really just hand a pack over to I mean, I can't imagine this is the last application we're going to see where someone's got a Phragmites problem.
Gary, I have a question. When we did the site walk up there, there was also a mention of someone who had cleared the area where the boat launch is.
Correct. Yeah, I notified.
What has happened with that?
Yep, I put that in the hands of Mr. Mulholland. So I notified him, and he would be pursuing it as an enforcement action under the zoning regulations in the coastal area management review that's required for activity within the coastal area. So you could give him a call and follow up. I will follow up with him tomorrow, and if you'd like, I can keep this commission abreast of any activity going on with that particular site.
Okay.
I think that sounds good. All right. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy, for your patience with this. You see, we're in that spot where we're trying to do the right thing, but not, I'm sure it feels like we've run you through the ringer anyhow, but we apologize.
Well, we're in unusual times,
Yeah.
so everybody's readjusting. So.
Thank you, sir.
You
So,
think?
yeah. Do I hear a motion to adjourn this meeting? And
Hey, can I ask something? Can I ask something real quick?
No.
Not in regards to this application, but I guess it's a procedural question. Can I ask that, Gary, of you? As for our next meeting?
Gaishel or Upton?
Gaishel.
Certainly. I mean,
So I guess I'm just wondering, as far as, so that we're all on the same page moving forward for the next meeting, since we do have the 500 upland review regulation change, can we modify that number at all without going through this whole process again?
you could modify the number down.
Okay.
It would be less restrictive.
And so we can't add any kind of conditions, but we could potentially modify the number a bit without having to have another public hearing and without going back to EPA. I mean, Deep. Sorry.
Yeah, I would think you'd be safe doing that. Yeah.
Technically,
I mean, I guess
the CGS says we have to send them our change to the regulations. It is very clearly written in the Connecticut General Statutes. I can read it if you want. We should talk about it maybe during that meeting. But it does say that any proposed change has to be made, sent to the commissioner, received by the commissioner, then posted by Jen and Gary for the town. We have to do that whole wait period. That is what the Connecticut General Statutes say.
Yeah, I would say we could have that further discussion at the public hearing if you'd like.
Okay, that's fine.
Is the marker going to be at the public hearing?
Yes, town attorney will be there.
Okay, so we can further clarify that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to adjourn then.
Hold on one second. Just so you guys have further clarity, rather than someone stating their interpretation, if you read section 22A-42, you will understand the procedure to change our permits, our regulations. It's very clear how it works. 22A-42A, establishment of boundaries by regulation, adoption of regulations, permits, filing fee, etc. for our wetland agency. All right. I didn't mean to interrupt. Someone was making a motion.
That's okay. I'm just making a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. See you guys in a bit.